Hey everyone, welcome in. I am over 100 hours after the launch of Diablo 4 into the game, and I've played it all in solo hardcore on my Necromancer. Now let's go into the game. What I want to do for you today is I want to really share all of the learnings that I've had of the game since the launch. So if you're looking for a very highly structured guide, I of course have a Bone Spear guide that you saw earlier on the channel. Please go check that out. And of course I have an endgame Bone Spear guide over on Maxroll. I'll leave a link of that in the description below. But what I want to show you today is everything that I've learned in the last 100 hours of hardcore. So just excuse the somewhat maybe rambly nature of the video here. I want to show you all of my gear on my current hardcore character, and I want to talk about, well, let's go ahead and get this out of the way. I had a lag death, so I'll show the clip of it here. But my character, essentially, I lagged out. Blizzard servers disconnected me from the game for about, I don't know, about a minute, 30 seconds or so, and then when my character resynced with the game, I was instantly dead. So there was nothing I could do. What's really interesting that we learned, though, is that when your character dies, you get a time played here. So this is something that's not really available anywhere else in the game, is this time played. I'd really like to see this as a /played command in the chat. And what's really cool is you can see your gear and your skills that you were using when you died. So you can see even 75 hours ago, I think I'm probably a good 30 or 40 or 50 and since this character died. Does it tell you exactly the date and time? Okay, yeah, no, this was Monday and today's Friday. So so you can see everything you had going on. Maybe what's going to be interesting about this in the future is once the meta evolves a little bit more, and in fact it's already evolved just a little bit, I'll be able to go back and see what mistakes I made in my equipment and if they would have had an impact. Now, the one thing that I did learn, maybe the biggest thing, is I think the most impactful legendary they can get for the Necromancer, aside from obviously something really rare like Shaco or Burning Heart of Selig, is the Penitent Greaves. The Penitent Greaves, let me tell you why these are so good. So the first thing is you can only get this on World Tier 3 or 4. And this does a couple things. First of all, Necromancer has a terrible time with movement speed. They have incredibly bad movement speed. And you'll see the first affix on these boots are movement speed. So you get a ton of movement speed just right out of the bat. It solves a major problem for the Necromancer, and it's something that I hope Blizzard is looking at for a balance update in the future, maybe a new skill. I hope that Necromancer could get. In fact, Necromancer has the lowest number of skills in the game. They have 17 skills, so I don't even think it would be noticed by other classes that Necromancer got a new movement skill, because everybody else has more skills than the Necromancer already. But also, it has a ton of cold resists. Now, cold resists at the super end game in Tier 3 and Tier 4. Cold resist monsters, fast cold resist monsters, or cold damage monsters, are some of the most dangerous things, especially for a hardcore player. And so having that extra cold resist on an item is actually huge. And this is a ton. Look, I have 50 cold resist on this one item. It's actually incredible. The last two parts that are really important, first of all, the evade granting movement speed is really important on the implicit, but almost every single Necromancer build is going to be using the Umbral, 4 Umbral, right? Once you get to end game, you're going to be using 4. As you're leveling, you might be using 1, or you might be using Blood Orbs. I'm going to be talking about Blood Orbs on a leveling character because I have actually another 2 Necromancers that I've been working on in solo, entirely solo SSF that I want to show you. You're going to have 4 Umbral, and of that 4 Umbral, what you can do is you can constantly regenerate off of chill. Now, what's interesting about Umbral is not only does it regenerate 4 per, not per enemy that's affected by crowd control, but also per crowd control effect, right? So let's say you have 5 enemies in a pack, and each of those enemies you cast Corpse Tendrils. So Corpse Tendrils does 2 things. It does a slow and it does a stun. So those 5 enemies are going to get affected by the slow, and the 5 enemies are then going to get affected by the stun, and that's going to be 2 times 4 times 5. So you're going to get 40 essence back. But then if you add a chill on top of that, and everything is also getting chilled, it's 60 essence. And what's even better is that this is slowing down some of the most dangerous monsters in the game that are chasing you. And it also gives you a lot of quality of life as you're hunting around the world and monsters are chasing you up. So what you can actually end up doing in practice is that you end up lining up all the enemies. You line them up. It's like Hellions in StarCraft 2, right? And all of the enemies start trailing behind you, and you trail them for a minute, and then you turn around and you throw a bone spear, and they just all die. It's really incredible. These are just, if you see these, get really happy, because this is the best item you can get for Necromancer right now. And it's not even that rare. It's pretty rare, right? You're not going to get this until World Tier 3 or 4. You can get it from gambling. By the way, a lot of people have asked me this, is that you can get uniques from gambling, so you can gamble for these, or you can try to target these at the Tree of Whispers as well. But these are super, super important. Okay, another thing that I really, really want to point out to those, to people who are really interested in Bone Spear. Bone Spear on a 2-handed weapon is more valuable than Bone Spear anywhere else. And let me explain why. If you have Bone Spear on your hands, it's going to read that the Bone Spear's damage range is from 50 to 100%, right? And 50 to 100%, when you put that on a two-handed weapon, is supposed to double. But splintering is special. It doesn't just double. It goes 2.5 times as much, right? So you can see here on this 2-hander, it's actually 125% to 225%. Now, if this was 2 times, this would read 100 to 200, right? So this is actually more valuable than usual when you put it on a 2-hander. Another thing that we've discovered, right, is that, and shout outs to my fellow Maxroll content creator, Macro Bio Boy, for discovering this. He deserves the credit for this, for sure. Is that the ossified essence aspect, the aspect of serration. This is actually, when you read this, you go, oh, okay, 40% plus. There's a plus sign after that 40% in the description here. You go, oh, okay, that's just making ossified essence better. But no, actually it's multiplicative into it. That's my current understanding. And so that 40% is actually way more valuable than you think it is, and you're going to do a ton of damage. Now I'm going to go back to some of the theory crafting and showing you guys some stuff. By the way, look at this ghost horse. This is something that I got in the game, just by playing the game. No store, no microtransactions. I got this from a Gathering Horde event, right? So I just want to show you guys this one event. I'm a World Tier 3, I'm level 59, and I'm doing really great damage, right? Like, look at this. I don't even have like all the aspects that I'm really supposed to have. There's an aspect called the aspect of Grasping Veins that I really want to have. But there's some gameplay things that I want to show you here. Not just, I don't want to just show you the damage. There's some gameplay things, right? So one thing that's really, really important is I want you to watch my essence here for a second. This is a mistake I think a lot of players are making right now when they're playing Bone Spear, or really just any Necromancer bone build in general, is that in Necromancer, a lot of your damage is coming from the fact that you have full essence. Serration, ossified essence, these things, they benefit from when you have full essence or near full essence. So what you want to be doing is you actually want to be spamming these things on cooldown. And as you can see, just watch my essence in the bottom right. Watch it closely, okay? You'll see that it remains topped up or nearly topped up And when it's not topped up, it's getting topped up pretty quickly, right? And I'm staying up on my essence. I'm popping my stuff on cooldown. I'm interspersing corpse explosions. And the other thing you'll notice, and this is another huge mistake that new players are making right now, is that the majority of my essence generation is not from exploding corpses. I explode corpses mainly actually for a damage multiplier that's on my Paragon boards, and fueled from death, which is on my skill tree. So these things are things that I'm just mostly, not super interested in. I'm not super interested in gaining essence from exploding corpses, actually. It's from other sources. Now, one really important gameplay tactic that I want to show y'all, besides just making sure that your essence is capped out, right? So do make sure that your essence is capped out, right? Now sometimes, like, maybe you're gonna have to go in here and take care of these guys because they're being really annoying. They don't wanna line them up the way that you normally do. And you're just kind of picking off enemies here or there. Where was I? Yeah. So I want to show you guys what the Wombo combo is. The Wombo combo is going to change your life, and you can do this while you're leveling too. So you'll see on my skill bar, I have Corpse Tendrils, and I also have Bone Prison. I think a lot of people vastly underestimate what Bone Prison can do. Bone Prison is one of Necromancer's best abilities. It also benefits from the cooldown reduction that you get from the Necromancer passive, so it's up nearly all the time. It's actually just an incredible passive. And I'm going to show y'all the Wombo combo here. So here we go. We're going to do this, and then we're going to do this. So we got all of those mobs within that Bone Prison, and when we did that, if you noticed down here, my Fortify absolutely topped out, and I topped out my essence at the same time, and I safely trapped all the mobs within the Bone Prison. This Wombo combo that I call it, this Wombo combo is absolutely critical to making the build just pop really hard. It's useful even on single targets, so like this. Boom, boom. So you can see there, I got some really great essence. And I was able to trap the mobs as well. So, the mobs aren't gonna go anywhere, and I can just plank them down with Bone Spear. You can see I was completely out of essence there. Rewind the video if you need to. I was completely out of essence there, and then I Wombo comboed my way all the way to full. So this is really powerful. You do not need to corpse explode, guys. You can do this while you're leveling. You do not need to be at end game. You do not need to be, like a super highly skilled Maxroll content creator or whatever to do this. This is something that you can do to make your Bone Spear just go super pop. So you watch this. They're almost already dead anyway because my damage is so good, but there we go. I pop a corpse just to get that extra damage. So boom, watch. I just pop one and I get that little extra bit of damage. So yeah, we're going through this at a decent clip. And again, the reason we're going through this at a decent clip is because my essence is super topped off. Now I've got some other things going on here that's making the build work really smoothly, and these are end game things. And so let me talk about some of the things that you can do when you get towards the end game with this character. So one of the first things that you're going to figure out really quickly in Diablo 4 is that survivability actually matters a lot. And survivability is kind of hard to stack on Necromancer. There's no like super easy survivability mechanics. So one thing that we can do on Necro is that we can stack Fortify Now, stacking Fortify while we level basically is dependent on only Bone Prison. As you can see, the upgrade here gives me Fortify. But later on, what we can do is on our Paragon board, on our very first Paragon board, we can socket this glyph. It's called the Glyph of Blood Drinker. And we can, when we pick up blood orbs, they can fortify us for 7% of our maximum life. So you can see here, I'm letting my Fortify kind of run out. I just want to show you how good Blood Drinker is here. Now, I'm getting blood. How do you get blood orbs? Well, I'm getting blood orbs, one, from an aspect called the Embalmer. This is not that hard to find when you're leveling. It's not a codex power. You have to find it on the ground, but it's not that hard to find. So that's one thing. But also, you can actually just get them for free from your corpse tendrils here. You just swap over from the vulnerable one up here to the blood orb one. You didn't think the blood orb one was any good? Well, guess what? The way you should read this upgrade is corpse tendrils makes you fortified. That's what it does, because it drops so many blood orbs. And what's so useful about them, this is the amazing, most useful thing, is check this out. I was waiting around talking to you guys, so I don't have any Fortify right now. But look, I have Fortify waiting for me. It's just sitting there on the ground. Boop. There's a little bit. Maybe it's draining a little bit too fast, so I don't have enough. But like, if I needed to heal up, or I needed just to tank a little bit of Fortify somewhere else, like, I could definitely do that. Now, before I get my Fortify fully up, I'm gonna go ahead and pop my Bone Storm. And what my Bone Storm is gonna do is it's going to give me basically an incredible source of shield, of barrier, I'm trying to say, before I go into the fight that I just had, and before this fight as well. So you can see I'm exploding all of these corpses, and the reason I'm exploding all these corpses is not because I care about the essence gain. I mean, the essence gain's all right, but what I really care about is actually generating these blood orbs from the corpses. So I have like a whole different mechanic. Now look at my Fortify. I'm like half fortified. I'm gonna go into this boss. This is probably gonna be a scary boss for me, so I might this is hardcore, guys, so I might get a little quiet here for a second. We're definitely gonna be using all of our mechanics. We're gonna be really careful, make sure we can, kind of dodge things a little bit here. Get him against the wall and pop him. There we go. All right. So that's what I just showed you right there, is a lot of times how you want to handle a boss, is you want to be careful with your damage, right? You don't want to just go up to the boss and just kind of throw bone spears at him willy-nilly. So you can see when I first started engaging the boss in the very beginning of that encounter, he wasn't against a wall or anything. And so because he wasn't against a wall, a lot of my damage was very ineffective, because a lot of my damage comes from the reflections of the bone spear. But when I stopped and I took a moment just to get some essence, even though I wasn't really able to fill all the way up on essence, I just let him get next to the wall, and I popped him with like 3 bone spears, and he went down really quickly. So that's how you're going to want to handle some of the bosses. I know a lot of people have been having trouble with bossing on the bone spear builds, but a lot of that is just like how it comes down to how you engage it, and not necessarily like if the build is good or not, right? So you can engage it kind of like in a way that's super good for the bosses. And some of that is also damage as well. So you'll eventually get so much damage. In fact, I'm still adding damage to my character right now. You'll eventually get so much damage that you'll just go and you'll one-shot the bosses. The Bone Spear builds do tons and tons and tons of damage, you guys. All right, so let's talk a little bit more theorycraft. Let's get back into the inventory. So I showed you Embalmer. I showed you my dead character, rip 75 hours of my life. By the way, this character, before he died, I was the #1 necromancer in the race to 1000 before this character died. So he was doing really, really, really well. Okay, so Penitent Greaves. And then another thing I want to talk about is Bone Storm Barrier. This aspect is really easy to get while you're leveling. You'll definitely find it very quickly, even before level 50. And you will have basically Bone Storm on your bar. And anytime you're in a dangerous situation, right, you have a big, scary boss, you are pulled into, 10 seconds of stun that's going to be really hard to get out of. Go ahead and pop. That's when you pop your Bone Storm. Another time I like to pop Bone Storm, as I did back there during the Fortress engagement, is like at the very beginning of my engagement, before I sort of built up my fortify, like at the beginning of a dungeon or something. I'll just go ahead and pop Bone Storm to make sure I have that extra survivability, so I don't get one shot. It is hardcore after all. Another aspect that's really useful that you can put either on your gloves or amulet slot is the Grasping Veins aspect. Now take a look at how amazing this aspect is. You get up to 20% increased crit strike chance when you look at the trigger, when you cast Corpse Tendrils. So you can cast Corpse Tendrils over here, and then the enemy can be way over there, and then you still get 20% crit. 20% crit is incredible, right? So with this build, your Corpse Tendrils has what? Let's look at the exact cooldown. Your Corpse Tendrils has 7.8 second cooldown. Okay, so 7.8 second cooldown, and you are getting 6 seconds of 20% crit strike chance. So essentially, you should almost always have 20% increased crit strike chance. So you can just go ahead and in the back of your head, when you open up your sheet, your character sheet, and you look at your crit strike chance, just go ahead and add 20 to that number, because you just added 20 with this aspect. But wait a second, there's more to this aspect. There's more. Enemies that you hit, if you hit an enemy, if you damage them with Corpse Tendrils, they get up to 60% bonus critical strike damage. Now, 60% bonus critical strike damage is actually incredible. So what you can do is you can use this on a boss, right? You can Corpse Tendrils them, and you'll get 20% crit strike chance, and you'll hit them 60% more crit damage, which you definitely are critting now because you just got 20% more crit strike chance. This is a great power. This is an incredible, incredible power. Okay, so I do want to go and I want to address some of these other powers over here, and I want to talk about resource. But before I do that, I want to talk about a secret mechanic. This is a secret mechanic that most people still don't know about, and I really want to show you what this does. I might have an item in the stash that I can actually show you it. Oh wait, I might be out of gold. I did a 20 million gold respec to do some bone spirit experimentation in hardcore. I learned a lot from it, by the way. Maybe that's the topic of another video. But there's something called the tier skip, or I'm calling it the tier skip, that is it's kind of cutting edge knowledge. You'll notice here that this item has 713 item power. And let's say we really care about this item. I don't. These affixes are actually quite bad. But let's say we really cared about these affixes. The problem is that this item is sacred, and it rolled a certain range of the affixes that are not going to be super useful to us. Or maybe we're in tier 3, not quite in tier 4 yet, and we want like a better item. But what's really cool is that you can add up to 25 item power to an item by upgrading it at the blacksmith. And there's a secret tier skip reroll of your affixes at 725 item power. Okay, so it won't reroll the affixes themselves, but it'll reroll the ranges, because they like range jump to like the next tier of item at 725 item power. Let's show you this live, right? So let's go to upgrade, right? So you're going to see every time you upgrade this, you're going to see the preview of what it's going to become, right? So this right now has 25.5% lightning resistance, right? Out of a total of 34.5. That's going to go up to 27.7 out of 37.2 or plus 2.2, okay? So you'll notice that this doesn't quite tier skip it yet. 713 plus 5 is 718. So let's go ahead and do 718. And then we'll do the same thing again. We see the lightning resists go up to 29.8 out of 39.8. Another 2.2 gain, right? So the gains here are linear, right? So I upgrade 1, it's 2.2. I upgrade again, it's 2.2, right? So the gains here are linear as we go up, right? So again, this is going to be 723, right? Okay, this is the tier skip. This tier skip is ridiculous. Take a look at the lightning resist. Take a look. If you upgrade this, the lightning resist not only, I mean, look at the current one, okay? It's not 2.2, it's not plus 2.2 lightning resist, right? It's going to tier skip because 725 is a breakpoint, right? So this is a super secret mechanic. If you know about this, once you get to world tier 3 and you start finding gear that's like 670, 680, 690, you want to start looking out for that 700 item power, because if you upgrade it 5 times, you can tier skip it. So check this out. Look, if this one upgrade gives me 24.9% more lightning resist, and you can even see what it's going to re-roll, because sometimes the re-rolls are bad. So in this case, the re-roll's really good, right? The re-roll goes up to 24.9%. So instead of 2.2% gain, I get, 11 times the amount of value because I know about the tier skip, right? So that tier skip tip, I think, is going to be super critical for a lot of players, especially as you get into like level 60, level 70, especially if you're like me and you're playing solo, right? And you don't have, other players to carry you throughout the game, right? That, by the way, like I've played all of my characters entirely solo. You can see I have like tons and tons of challenges already complete, and then if you go into my multiplayer challenge, it's completely empty, right? There's absolutely nothing here. So let's go back and show you some more gear and talk about resource. So I've learned a lot about resource, and in fact, the Maxroll guides, which for Bone Spear, which I'll link in the description below, both for leveling and for endgame, I've added sort of essence mini guides in there because so many people with Necromancer are having essence problems. I am gonna actually talk to the other Maxroll guys tomorrow to see if we can add those to all of the guides. That might take us some time. That might be sort of like a season 1 update kind of thing. But I think that's going to be really valuable for you. So I want to talk about sort of end game Necromancer resource, and then I'll talk about leveling Necromancer resource, because I actually have a completely different Necromancer character I've been working on, my 3rd Necromancer already for leveling. And all of these are SSF, so I'm not getting like carried by 3 barbarians in a party and Champion's Demise or something. This is all, you're going to be able to do this all by yourself, right? So at endgame, the aspect of exposed flesh, this is pretty rare. It's going to be really hard for you to find this. But this is so good. I know the lucky hit says up to 10% chance, and Bone Spear is a 50% lucky hit proc, so the way you should really read this is you have a 5% chance to, so you have a 5% chance to generate essence when you hit a vulnerable enemy with bone skills. So what's really cool is with Bone Spear, we have the splintering aspect, which makes basically everything vulnerable from all the shards that we have coming back from the the broken bone spear. By the way, one thing that's really, really important to pick up here is the shards make them vulnerable. So you want to make sure you have that paranormal bone spear. And so if that first projectile from bone spear critically strikes, you get 2 extra bone shards. So you're actually getting 5 instead of 3. And that's just really, really critical. Okay, so exposed flesh, basically everything you hit on the screen, it's going to be 5% chance, 5% chance, 5% chance, 5% chance, right? So if you have a big pack of monsters, and of course we're corpse tendriling on cooldown, right? You have a big pack of monsters that you just corpse tendrilled on cooldown, and for some reason, let's say you're just in a bad situation or whatever, you aren't topped out on your essence, you're going to throw a bone spear, and there's a good chance that either you're going to instantly get all the essence back that you just lost from throwing the 1 bone spear, plus you're going to probably proc it a couple more times to completely fill up your essence again. So this aspect is really cool because it actually just refills your essence as you're casting bone spear, right? So you cast, fill, cast. You don't have to cast anything else in order to fill that essence. Of course, the Lamborghini of essence regeneration for the Necromancer is Umbral. Umbral is, as I explained before, benefits from any crowd control effect, and they all stack. So a lot of times, Corpse Tendrils by itself will fill up your entire essence meter. So you can just look at the Corpse Tendrils button and you can go, okay, what does Corpse Tendrils do for me? It slows all my enemies. It stuns all my enemies. It pixel pulls all my enemies. It's one of the best pixel pulls in the entire game. It procs Umbral and fills up my entire essence. And it has a 30% chance for each enemy that it damaged to drop blood orbs, which all fortify me. This one skill is godly, right? I personally think Corpse Tendrils is Necromancer's best skill, and thank God they have a best skill because they don't have many of them. A lot of their other skills are just straight bad. So you have all of these great options for generating essence here, just these 2 things. But wait, there's more, right? When you were leveling, you have Bone Prison. Now, what's really cool is you have this enhancement in Bone Prison that when an enemy is trapped by Bone Prison, you gain 15 essence. 15 is actually really good. 15 is equivalent to 2.5 corpses, right? So you're exploding 2.5 corpses and you get enhanced Bone Prison. And then, wait a second, you get 5 even if you trap 1 enemy. So even if you put this on a boss, you get 20, right? Even a boss gives you 20 essence from enhanced Bone Prison, right? But every additional enemy gives you 5. So what's really amazing about Bone Prison is that even if you have a ton of essence, what you can do is you can choose to wombo combo in different ways depending on your situation. And this is why I love this build so much, is because it's so advanced and the player can really just like, it's a Lamborghini, man. It's a Tesla, right? You can make this thing go fast. You can make this thing really go. So what you can do is with Umbral, you cast Corpse Tendrils, you get the slow, you get the stun, you get a full essence meter, right? And then you cast 1 Bone Spear, not 2, 1 Bone Spear. And you just start killing everything in that pulled together pixel pull. But you still have that pulled together pixel pull, right? And maybe there are enemies still alive. And if there are enemies still alive, you just spent a ton of essence. You just spent 25 essence, right? And you want to get that essence back. How do you get that essence back? Well, you drop a Bone Prison on it. And any remaining enemies, well, if you have 3 enemies in that pack, right? You have, if you have 2 enemies in that pack, you have full essence, right? So this just like puzzle piece fits right into that 1 Bone Spear. If you cast 2 Bone Spears, you're going to need more enemies, obviously, so just cast the 1. But then the goat of the two nodes. This node here, vulnerable, you don't need it, you got splintering, right? This node here, fortify, 5% base life for each enemy trapped in bone prison. Yeah, so say you're completely out of fortify, then you approach the wombo combo a little bit differently. Instead of focusing on gaining more essence, because you're gonna have a lot of different ways to gain essence, then go ahead and just drop the bone prison first before you throw the bone spear and kill everything. And you're gonna gain way more fortify because all of those enemies are alive, right? So you can approach your combats kind of dynamically depending on the situation and make it work the best for you. Now, one more little essence generation trick that I want to show you that works really well at endgame, and then I'm going to go log on my other character and show you what leveling essence looks like, is this. Now, you don't have to do this, and in fact, I think once you get to super endgame, level 80, 90, blah, 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 this is actually suboptimal and you don't want to do this anymore. But eventually around level 50, 60, 70, you're going to get Blood Artisan's Cuirass. Now, Blood Artisan's Cuirass spawns free bone spirits from blood orbs, and obviously this build spawns a lot of blood orbs. So what you can do with those bone spirits is you can actually, instead of using those free bone spirits for damage, because you already have plenty of damage from your bone spear, you can use those bone spirits for essence. So what you do is you put just 1 point into bone spirit, put 1 into enhanced bone spirit, and then you grab Dreadful Bone Spirit. Now, Dreadful Bone Spirit is so good, and let me explain why it is. It's not just gaining 30 essence. 30 essence is great, but like I mentioned sort of at the beginning of the video and sort of demonstrated at the beginning of the video, what's really important is sort of keeping topped off on the essence, right? You want to make sure that that essence orb is like scraping the top of the essence orb the entire time. You want to keep it really up there. So you'll notice here, not only does this generate 30 essence, but it does it over the next 4 seconds. So what's really beautiful about that is that if you see a bone spirit coming out because you picked up however many blood orbs, then you can go ahead and fire 1 or 2 extra bone spears to clear a couple of extra enemies, and then the bone spirit hits, clears an enemy, and maybe you're already running away because you know that bone spirit's going to kill that little stray enemy, and it's going to generate you that 30 essence, so that by the time you hit the next pack, you're already full once again on essence. It's actually crazy the ways that you can sort of layer your essence to make it always scrape the top of that essence orb. And what's really important, all of the different ways I've highlighted that you can get essence, is that these aren't exploding corpses to get essence. In fact, I very rarely explode corpses to get essence. And I think with this build, eventually, I will probably get rid of this part of the build, the Grim Harvest part of the build, just because I think it's not valuable. Now, I still think consuming the corpses is valuable. I still think Hued Flesh is valuable. But I only think it's valuable because of Embalmer over here, which every time I consume a corpse, I'm getting blood orbs. So if I can find another way, and by the way, there is like sort of like a bone storm aspect that does that, that consumes some corpses. Unfortunately, it's not super consistent quite yet. But if you can do that without using corpse explosion at all, then that would be even better, right? But what I want to show you is a really easy thing that anyone who is leveling can do within just the minutes of starting the campaign, right? So when you start the campaign, you start with no legendary aspects. You need to get really, before you can really think about legendary aspects, you need to get to like level 15, level 20. So just do Act 1. Don't worry too much about legendary aspects yet. So one of the first legendary aspects that you'll really want to pick up is this one, the Circle of Potent Blood. Not Circle of, but Potent Blood, right? And you'll see, while at full life, blood orbs grant 10 essence. So here we are on blood orbs again. So even while leveling, again, this Plagued Corpse Tendrils, it gives vulnerable, but it's kind of a trap. you can actually use this Blighted Corpse Tendrils, and even without the Embalmer, you can still generate blood orbs for yourself without using anything else, right? So this is just the GOAT right here. So you can make these Blighted Corpse Tendrils. You can go ahead and not only can you get, not only later can you get Fortify from them, that's at end game, but those blood orbs are going to heal your character as you're leveling, just to make sure that your health is good. But they're also, while you're at full life, you can get 10 essence. So what you might want to do is at the end of a fight, go ahead and hit your potion button, make sure you're at full life, so that each of those orbs are very efficient. And then go ahead and just get tons of essence. 10 essence is actually quite good. And then, of course, we already talked about the Wombo combo, but I'm using the Wombo combo here as well. So the Wombo combo is giving you, it's giving you essence just from the Bone Prison at this point, because I don't have 4 Umbral on right now. I haven't found a 4 Umbral yet. But it's giving you the Bone Prison here. And you can see my character here is just so slow compared to my level 59 hardcore necromancer. This is a level 41 necromancer, and I haven't really done any of the renown on softcore or like any of that kind of stuff. But I can still actually be pretty successful here during leveling. So you can see it's good damage, but I'm not quite one-shotting everything. Right, so here we are. I'm at the end of an engagement, right? You can see my essence. It's pretty slow, right? So I can go ahead and pop these corpses if I want. I can pop. Okay, cool. So while you're leveling, popping corpses is a little bit more valuable. I would call it medium value. I wouldn't call it high value. When you're high level, it's maybe of a higher value. Okay, so let's do the Wombo combo, right? I'm gonna empty out my essence here for you. So watch. This is during leveling, the power of the Wombo combo. Boom, half my essence right there. And then these guys, they're super trapped. They're gonna die. Let's go ahead, pop all their corpses, right? And so I'm gonna pop all their corpses. Now what's super valuable about the Wombo combo, you see 1, 2, I got 2 blood orbs out of that while leveling. So let me show you that. Here, I'm just gonna empty out my essence. This is from 1 cast. That's from 1 cast of Corpse Tendrils. So even 1 cast of Corpse Tendrils is like enough to set you up for your next engagement. Boom. And then boom, boom. There we go. So now I'm really starting to be able to get my essence. It's definitely not as good as my completely optimized in-game character, of course, right? I have to rely just a little bit more on the corpse explosion, these sorts of things, right? So one other thing that I have while I'm leveling here is this legendary aspect here, the Band of Torment. Now the Band of Torment you can actually get from, oh, I should tell you where you can get these, right? So you can see on softcore my map is like not explored, right? So Band of Torment you can actually get here from Black Asylum. You can literally start the game, walk out of Kyovashad, go straight to Black Asylum, and get your very first resource aspect at like level 7 or 8. And what's great about Potent Blood is right here. It's in Betrayer's Row. So what you can do, level 7 or 8, you go here, and then you run down here, you pick up the waypoint, and then you run over to Betrayer's Row, and you do Betrayer's Row. And you have both of your starter game resource aspects like within the first hour of gameplay of like starting your Diablo 4 account. So you can really quickly get the resources that you need in order to be successful, even while you're leveling, even while you're sort of brand new to Diablo 4. Now, while you're leveling, while you're going through the campaign, there's one more aspect that's going to be really critical for you, and that's this one. It's the Bone Spear primary attack. It's Splintering. Once you get Splintering, you really unlock tons of damage for yourself. Now, I'm going to show you where this is, but also there's something really important to understand. So it's down here, right? It's at a place called Ghoul Run Slums. But what's really important is that when you're going through the campaign, if you haven't finished the campaign, this dungeon is not going to be accessible to you. So you're going to have to finish all of Act 1. You're going to have to finish all of Act 2. You're going to have to finish the very beginning of Act 3. And then towards the middle of Act 3, you're going to finish both the campaign Ghoul Run Slums dungeon and the campaign Ghoul Run Canals dungeon. And once you finish both of those dungeons, then Ghoul Run Slums, the dungeon with the splintering aspect, actually opens up to you. If you bum rush it, it's maybe about level 25, but I think most people are probably going to get to it about maybe level 30. All right, let's wrap up this video. I want to talk a little bit more about some of the survivability sources. So one thing that's really important, again, is the shielding storm aspect here. We get this from casting Bone Storm. This is a really important source of barrier. And the barrier is giving us that like spike of survivability in places where we need it. But eventually, we actually want to transition to a somewhat better item. And I can't actually equip it quite yet because I earned this on my previous dead character. It's called Temerity. Now, Temerity is an item that can basically just slowly give you a trickle of barrier that you have constantly. And you can power this barrier through overhealing. So essentially, you start treating your barrier less like barrier generation, like a different mechanic, and more like a second life bar. What's really important with this is that this scales off of your life, right? You'll see that up to 50% of your maximum life, right? So putting rubies into your gear, first of all, is already really meta and really good for the necromancer just in general, because there's a lot of other maximum life things that scale off of that. But once you where'd it go? Oh, I lost my temerity. Oh, there it is. Once you get temerity, then now maximum life as an affix on your gear is just so more important, because you benefit from that maximum life twice. Once from your life pool and once from the barrier pool that you have here. So what's really interesting about temerity that a lot of people don't think about is, so a lot of people are wearing these two-handed swords at endgame right now, because two-handed sword has this, if you look here, it says critical strike damage right under the attacks per second. That's called an implicit, right? So two-handed sword has a critical strike damage implicit, which, you know, that's optimal, but that critical strike damage is additive and actually isn't as important as you think it is, right? So when you get temerity, wearing a scythe is actually really good. And let me tell you why. It's because it gives you life on kill. Now, life on kill by itself is, you know, mid, but when you have temerity, every single kill is also popping your barrier and adding to that like constant rolling refresh of your barrier, giving you that extra survivability that's super important. Now, of course, you're also getting extra healing received. So guess what? Blood orbs, that's right, blood orbs are in the build already. So blood orbs are actually helping power temerity, and they're giving you fortify, and they're so good, right? But now you have the extra healing received, so the blood orbs are even more effective, keeping you even more alive. And of course, you have lucky hit here that you have a chance to proc and heal that life as well. And the all stats is, you know, whatever. What's hopefully in hardcore, this first effect while injured, we never want to be injured in hardcore. We never want to have that. If you have that low of a life, you're doing something wrong, and you should probably like go and look at yourself in the mirror for 5 minutes and be like, uh-oh, okay, how do I fix my character? My character just almost died. Like, oh boy. Like, we don't do that in hardcore, but in softcore, maybe that implicit is a little bit more valuable. I started the video out talking about Penitent Greaves. I want to leave you with Penitent Greaves. Look at this. 17% movement speed. This could have rolled up to 24% movement speed, and the evade gets 70% for a second. So you're just obviously popping that on cooldown, and you're chilling all the enemies behind you. So this item, again, best necromancer item in the game. If you find penitent greaves, tear your shirt off, throw your computer chair out the window, take your keyboard, gently shake it upside down into your eyes. Like, this is the best thing that you're gonna find. It's gonna really, really help you out. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning into this hastily thrown together and edited video for YouTube. Anyway, if you like this, please like and subscribe the video down there, and I'll see you in the comments. See you in game. Have a good one. Peace.